She got addicted. What's addicted? The pleasure and pain the wing ding inflicted. Let's see. September 1994. Auto sound and security. Little cheek hanging out, but she doesn't really have a butt, so that's how it goes. Punch fan looks beautiful. SAS Chevy truck. Mm-hmm. So I've been. I don't normally listen to the 12 volt talk podcasts because they're boring as fuck, and they talk about a bunch of boring shit. But I did see one from what's his name? Something Hi-Fi Vega, and it has Larry Frederick, my friend from Cicada, and so it's fun listening to Larry go through his history of car audio. So because he was really influential on a lot of products that you guys love, and you know that old school stuff. So motherfucker gave me a speeding ticket going 16 and a 15 when I was late for school to try to teach me a lesson. All I did was remember that cops are fucking dicks. That's all I remember. Front stage. How to turn this thing on? I saw that one yesterday. So if you're watching, oh, by the way, you should watch my videos in order. That's all, of when I post them. It just helps. That's all. You don't have to, right? Right? You don't have to not punch a baby. You can punch a baby. But you don't have to punch a baby. Oh, little CD player. What is that? Guiding light. Oh, that's without the face. Oh. Power logic from acoustic. Oh, that makes sense now. I realize what's going on now. See, I thought Power Logic was a brand, so but it's just a series, and then Acoustic is the brand, and you know, good amps, same as everybody else. And then I think I would love to know when MyTech actually bought them, or if it was MyTech's budget brand all along. So I would love if anybody knows the history of. Actually, you know what? I should probably ask Larry Frederick. Larry would probably tell me. And I'm going to see him Friday because we've got another container coming in. So, Lanzar Opti. Oh, there you go. The high current. 50C? Was it high? I thought they were called HC. Maybe that was a later version. We've seen this one before. Ooh, what is this? It's an EC2 1. Excuse me. Electronic crossover. That's it. Oh, and that's it. That's the guts, which looks just like the Rockford ones. In fact, it's probably made by Rockford. Yeah, this looks like the old, like back in the early 90s Hafler stuff. So I'm sure there's videos on that shit or pictures I posted. Now, these are the Orions. I can recognize these already. At least that's what I think. Yeah, XTR G series. So also, I want to ask Larry Frederick on the Hertz brand. So for a minute, some woofers that came out of Orion had the NT, Intense series carbon fiber cone, but they were labeled Hertz. And so I think that might have been his brand because it was an older brand from long ago. And then also there was God, what was his name? Boyd, the rim guy, the guy that does, not the rim job guy, that's another guy. But he does rims. He had his own, or is it? No, yeah, it was Boyd. Yeah, because Lloyd is the guy that owns or started MTX. So, and then this looks like the 6MB. Yep, 6.5 MB, and then they made an 8 MB, these are one of the first commercial drivers available with Neo, which was exciting at the time. So, oh, there we go, the PSL. Is that oh, that's the A55. I was just talking about this the other day. I had installed the PSL 275. It was a blue one, and that we had got from a mutual friend, Casey Loader. And I installed it in my brother's shitty little car, and I think the budget was like $200. And I got him a sub in a bandpass box that we ran with an inductor bridged, and then on the two channels, the two channels we crossed up at I think 200 hertz with some caps, and then I added, let's see, because it was only a 2-door, and so we ended up cutting the doors a little bit, and I put 2 5 1/4 in each door with 2 tweeters, and it sounded amazing, and he loved it. But then I think he got in a car wreck, and I don't think he had the widths to pull the speakers out, so he was not into it in that way. So my brother's never been the smartest light on the Christmas tree. I told you that story about where he brought a briefcase full of plastic guns through airport security, right? So I'm not sure if I told you that one. So, and then on that same trip, it was hilarious because we were hanging out with my older brother, and I had brought my skateboard, and there was a hill in the area, and we started going down it, and I didn't have lock nuts on one of the wheels, and so one of the wheels came off while my little brother Tyson was riding it, and he ended up erasing about half of his face, getting some road rash. And then which again, a lot of stuff has happened to my brother, and it's not because he's dumb, but it's just sort of like he's inexperienced and doesn't really retain quality information. He sort of has his own way of doing things, and he's very stubborn, and it's he's got to learn the hard way. So, but the funniest thing about him getting half his face erased was I think about like a week later, they're like, you want to go? We were in Indiana, southern Indiana, and he was like, you want to go to the pool? We'll go to the pool. And it was like a public pool, and it was some local school or whatever it was. And we got in the pool, and the scab had crusted over his face. And then when you get in the pool, it softens it up, and nobody really gives a shit. It's the 80s, and there's plenty of chlorine. I'm sure somebody's taken a dump in the pool somewhere. And but it was great because there's a lot of bugs in that part of the country. It's very green. Some gnats started collecting over them, and he couldn't feel them. So he just looked like this diseased monster. And of course I clown on him because he's my little brother, and he got a little upset about that. But I thought, to me, that was like the funniest part. So, but let's see, Zapco's. It's a lot of money, man. A lot of money. Not one EQ, 2 EQs. Completely unnecessary. The new SL500 from AVI. I think we saw that ad before. It looks like a Neo driver, but I'm not sure. It's cute. I like that idea of putting the terminals on the inside. So, because it doesn't matter. Look at this dickhead. I'm old. I'm going to give you a ticket. I'm going to put things in your butthole. Sherwood. They made good amps too. I think Sherwood either was or has been sucked into the whole. I just forgot their name. AudioVox group. So again, they're all good amps. They're all designed well, and they perform well. They're not just like look at the cosmetics. It's just kind of plain. So not that that's the end of the world, but some people like. Like I was listening to Larry Frederick talk about Phoenix Gold and the way that they looked at, the boards were just amazing looking. Because, traditionally in electronics, nobody cared what the board looked like. Why are you looking at the board? How does that affect the performance? Well, it doesn't. But if you start showing it off, then all of a sudden people take notice, and, and you're doing something that nobody else is doing. So it was a marketing gimmick, and it's still a marketing gimmick. But, some people go for it. Some people don't. Sorry if that ice maker's making noise, but I forgot to turn it off. There's the RTA. The little mic. Your future starts here. Where? TV VCR repair. Boy, this is basically the same fucking magazine of the one we just reviewed. I mean, just a couple of little. That was cool. The little custom paint on the diagram to show you all the speakers and stuff like that. This is a 1989 Chevy Astro. Robert Rabbit Blake. So maybe he fucks like a rabbit. I don't know. Shop installer Mark Fukuda at Auto Graphics. So good job. 10 amplifiers, 200 amp alternator. Wow, that's beefy. Of course, I'm being sarcastic, and this page is falling out, by the way. Hey, symmetry. Good job. Which was Wayne Harris's idea. Wayne, are you retired? I would hope so. You've done a lot of work, bud. A lot of good work. And they were just using the symmetry for, I don't know why. Unless these are all the ones, no, these have crossovers. The eye did not have a crossover, so maybe you really just needed it for that, but these all had crossovers, but not these two. So why you would need symmetry, I don't know, but it's a Rockford demo van, so you want to promote that as much as you can and hope that somebody pays the, whatever it was, $5,000 for basically an exotic equalizer that you can add amplifiers to. So, oh, I'm sorry, Woofer of the Month. Let me show some respect. Thank you, Stillwater Designs, for the Solo Barrack S12A. Again, there's a sealed box. Which one's this? Oh, that's just a regular sealed boxes only, which is not true. So let's look at the teal smalls. So FS is good. That's a little too low, but okay. QTS is very low. Again, probably recommended because... again, you want to have typically those in a sealed box because the VAS is so large. And in this case, the given VAS is actually 8 cubic feet for a 12-inch woofer. That's a little extreme, right? It's basically a home audio subwoofer. And so as tested, though, it's 3.75, which is not as bad as the 8 cubic feet. But, you don't need to go into 8 cubic feet. So typically, you could probably put this in about 2 cubic foot sealed, and it does pretty well. And in fact, if you put it in about, I would say 2.5 ported at 35 hertz, it would perform phenomenally, which is exactly what modern woofers do today. And that's what, if Kicker has anything about doing the Solo Barrack, again, that's all they did was just put a bigger magnet on it. They realized that you could electrically use more power to just give you the results that you were looking for. So again, shitty bandpass, don't use bandpass. Why do you need a big peak here when you can be nice and flat? And have a larger, but they only put this in what's called a fourth order bandpass, which again is a misnomer. It's a sealed box, which has a 12 dB slope, and then this little thing is a whistle, and it plays these notes. Woo! And it's dumb, so don't do those. This guy, we've seen this guy in his shorts many times. Tweak time. So, yeah, for a while there, back in the 90s, there was a tweaker movement and it later evolved into sound quality versus SPL. So that's what we know. But there was boomers and tweakers. That's the way it used to be. America's Music machines, and then they had these little proprietary, they're proprietary modules that would make high pass, low pass, band pass, bass boosts, all built into the module. Let's see. Just nerds being nerds. Oh, it's fabrication. Look what they did to that grill. Nothing. Oh, I thought they put like an equalizer on the front of it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, dog shit and duct tape. That's what you're gonna find. Audio buys. There's our trophy-winning team. Battle of the Bull Run, and then I guess this is just a local. There you go. Mullets in effect. Yeah, that's a lot of dads still dress like that. So, and this, there you go. Showing off those good knees. Someone had him install their cosmetic feature. Don't know if the competitor picked up extra points. Yeah, I think they were trying to make a joke there or something. It's terrible. Blah, blah, blah. I ask advertisements. Blah, blah, blah. People are winners. Blah, blah, blah. Competitor of the month. Adam Sarwatari? Sarwatari? Good job. Good job. Little ad. Get to schooling. Let's see, who is it? Installers needed. I tell you what, installer school was actually a real thing. When we got to go to the auction at Orion, which was the ADST group, they were doing their own. I think it was called the Viper Den, and or no, that's DEI's school. DEI had the Viper Den. PPI had their own technical school as well. And of course, what happened originally was RTTI, Rockford Technical Training Institute. And they're the ones that actually put together the materials from math and science and put it together on how it applies to car audio. And the reason why they did that was, and they would fly you in. Like if you're a Rockford dealer, they're like, fuck it, we're going to fly you in and train your installers on how to be better installers. And hopefully you'll provide the customer with a better experience. Because typically when you're sending out an amp and when the fucking installer fucks it up, fuck, that's such a pain in the butt. I mean, users are dumb, but when the installer's dumb too, you're like, oh, fuck. So I think it's just to wage against returns, because what's the difference between the dealer saying that a user fucked up this amp versus a installer fucked up this amp? Nothing, because the amp is still fucked up and they want a new one. So, and then you got to negotiate warranties and all that kind of stuff. And it ends up being just a percentage, a fail rate percentage, which is typically right around 10%. So, which is common. PPI had the lowest one, and that's because they did 100% QC and they did some other stuff too. It was like 1% failure rate after a year or whatever. So, and some of that had to do with consistency. I was having an internet argument, which is always productive, earlier today about the difference between something like this, which is considered a high quality, state of the art. In fact, they even stay at, absolutely state of the art. Top Tits McGee type of amplifier. And, but a lot of it has to do with just marketing. Like they started advertising that they use 1% resistors for the gate transistor, or for the whatever the turn on, whatever it is. I forget the nomenclature. It doesn't make a difference. You can use Sandcast resistors, the big square white ones. Those work just as good. But somehow the marketing guys showed that this was not just a piece of electronics. It's not just something to amplify your music, your precious music. It's a piece of art. So now you're paying for art, right? And there's more money. So now you're selling, the build cost on this was probably right around $50. And now you're retailing it for say $300, and then they're selling it for $1 watt, so $600. There you go. So that's how you turn $50 into $300, 100 times a day. There's pays for a lot of cocaine. And that's what those guys spend it on, a lot of them. And even when the Mormon guys here local, because again, Arizona's filled with a lot of Mormons, and you get these nerdy Mormon guys that want to do something cool because they're in church. They're not fucking cool. There's no such thing as cool in Mormon church, and they start to rebel and do. They're like, well, I don't need to do. It was funny because I remember that. I was reading an article. I want to do a whole video on it. It was about how Brooke Shields blasted Barbara Walters for an interview that Brooke Shields did when she was 15 with Barbara Walters. And Barbara Walters was basically trying to shame Brooke into being a harlot and a whore. And that wasn't the case at all. Brooke was very beautiful and is beautiful and was very innocent. And her mom capitalized off of that. And I think Brooke didn't even lose her virginity until college. But guess what paid for college? Those ads that she did and the movies that she did, and then even the naked photos of her when she was 12 in Playboy. So that sounds a little weird. She did not pose for Playboy. She posed for artistic nudes when she was 12, and they were published in Playboy. And it was funny because later she got the mom got a lot of heat for releasing those pictures to Playboy, and of course for Playboy it was insanely good, because to find a mother willing to let her child pose nude like that was unheard of in America. Overseas, Europe, Denmark, all that kind of stuff, all those countries, pretty normal. That's just like a nudist magazine, which is pretty normal. But in America, and then to be published by, I wouldn't say a mainstream, but a major publication corporation like that, Playboy, was very scandalous. And again, most people don't remember because it wasn't really that big a deal. But the mother felt a lot of shame and came back and tried to sue Playboy for publishing them and making money off of her daughter. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You got these pictures done. You okayed this. And then what was great about the pictures was it got Brooke seen by talent scouts. And then I think I'm not sure if they cast her in, was it Pretty Babies? Something. She played, Brooke ended up playing a 12-year-old prostitute in New Orleans. She played a prostitute, Barbara Walters, acted. She wasn't a prostitute. Jesus Christ. Anyways, so back to my story about Mormons, which was that when I was 18, I was in Hawaii, and I was picking pineapple because I was a wayward youth. And one of the things that we used to do, we were over in West Maui, over in the Kaanapali area, and there is still a beach, but it's not really there anymore. It's called Slaughterhouse Beach. Beautiful nature reserve. Like, you couldn't fish there, so there's a lot of cool tropical fish, tropical snakes, in the like water snakes and things like that. Because you didn't really want to pay attention to that if you're frolicking in the beach, but if you got on some goggles, it was really just full of life, and it was really, really neat to see a lot of sea urchins, really clear water, and we also, that was in '92, and Hurricane Iniki came through and basically erased the beach, which was really sad. And if you know Slaughterhouse Beach in West Maui, it's a little difficult to get to because you have to climb down some rocks and get to it. So anyways, we used to go there every day after work because when you're picking pineapple, you end up getting these pokes on your forearms from reaching for the pine. They're on the ground, they're not in trees, just so you know. And so when you pick the pine, there's sharp little needles, and they poke you in the stomach. And it helps to go to the beach afterwards, not only to relax, but the salt water helps cure the sores for the next day. And so while we were there, we were hanging out on the beach, and it's a public beach, and a lot of tourists visit Maui because it's beautiful. And there was a tourist lady from Germany with 2 kids, and I think she had a little boy that was wearing a Speedo, and then the little girl was just nude. She's probably like 5 or something like that. But then the mom got topless, and she was pretty fruitful from the baby. And I remember the conversation I had with the guys that we call them Lunas. They were our sort of leaders of our like little squadron, our little picking crew. And because they were so preachy about the fucking Mormon shit and about the way that people should act and the way that people, basically the same shame that Barbara Walters tried to shame with. And I was like, aren't you going to go over there and ask her to put her top back on because it's inappropriate because there's teenage boys over here? And he's like, nope, it's a public beach. That's none of my fucking business. So that it got to my point. It's like, why is this anybody's business? So if she dresses like that, wherever she goes, that does not give you the right to rape her. It definitely gives you the right to oogle. That's fine. And if she gets mad about that, that's her fault. So, but look at all that candy, that ear candy. Squirrel. So, but so anyways, stop telling other people what to do with their bodies. Like, fuck off. So stop telling me what to do with my body. I can suck my own dick, or I used to, but so can Joe Rogan. It's not a big deal. Just means I got a big wiener. Here we go. Here's the diagram that everybody loves. Let's see. 275. I hate when they use weird numbers for names. I like when they use names. So like, who was it? US Acoustics tried to make a comeback. Gosh, this is probably 10 years ago. And they came up with Mike and Barbara Ann, which of course is from the Beach Boys. So, and Mike was the big Class D, and then Barbara Ann was the big 4-channel. And they go together, and then they also had the Big Ben, which is just a big Class D, and it's the same boards overseas, very generic, but they spend a little money on the heat sink. But again, if you're going to buy 100 boards from China, you can get pretty much whatever heat sink they have on mold. So now getting it anodized the color that you want and getting it finished and all that other stuff, that may cost a little bit more. But again, when you're spending 40 grand, what's an extra 5 to get it to be the way that you get it? Because your return on investment is going to be about triple or even quadruple. What is that? So I use the phone. My eyes are bad. They're getting bad because I'm getting old. Amplifiers. Oh, they're Alpine. That's why. I didn't really like Alpine. The people love the chiclets head units. Like, okay. I didn't think there was anything special about it. I thought it was the same quality as Sanyo, and it is. And Sanyo was like a poo-poo shitty brand, like from a large corporation like Panasonic, and because Panasonic and Sanyo are sister companies, and or sister brands, I should say. I think they're owned by the same people. But yeah, there was again, even a shitty like no name brand CD player. Like, remember the portable CD players you could get for like $30 or whatever at Best Buy or whatever. I mean, probably not Best Buy, but like just whatever. It was before online stuff. Anyways, you used to be able to get these really cheap CD players, and they worked just as good as the Sony. Just as good. Because why? Because they all use the same fucking chip. You guys are paying too much for audio stuff. A CD player has to have a certain quality, a certain performance, just to be called a CD player. Same with an amplifier. If you make a bad amplifier, you're going to know about it really quick, and you're probably going to be out of business. So guess what? Nobody makes any bad amplifiers. They all pretty much do the same thing. And they're all pretty much made with the same guts, the same electronics, and you can't really make a better quality FET device. Like fake FET devices are kind of rare because it's so cheap to get the genuine thing, unless there's a crisis or unless you're selling them direct to consumers, which they do. A lot of people complain about the FETs that you buy off of eBay. Stop buying them off eBay. They're cheap for a reason. So because they're I don't want to say they're counterfeit, but they're just not what they advertise they are. They're usually with an older die, and you're talking about some guy in his garage running a fab, basically a portable fab, which they make, by the way, because I used to make the tools, the polishers that were doing that, where you could have one in your garage, and it was hermetically sealed so that there wasn't any contamination. So you didn't need a clean room. You could actually have everything self-contained. Anyways, some people make money from selling fake devices, and the only way to really tell, because the packaging looks, the outside looks fine, the screen print looks the same, is if you x-ray them. And then inside you can see the die, which is the actual transistor device. And you can see modern ones actually use the same package type, like the TO220 package. And then they'll put like 8, 4, or even 16 devices in the same package type, which is insane. But what it is overkill. So, but anyways, back to fake devices. It's actually very expensive to make fake devices. You might as well just buy the cheap ones. And they make them cheap enough that, you just stockpile a bunch of them and use them whenever you need to. So, and that's why a lot of these cheap amps, I would say off brands like these guys, but I was thinking about Centrek, an older 90s brand. Again, they use the same devices from the same fabs over in Asia. And the reason why a lot of fabs were in Asia is because, especially China now, and back when I was working in semiconductor in the late 90s, the reason why they used China is because China didn't have the environmental restrictions, I would say protocols, because the idea of having environmental protocols is for safety. But they would use this, I forget the name, it's like chlorofluorine something or whatever, but if you got it on your skin, it would soak into your skin and it gets into your bones and it like rots your bones. And so, but in China, they don't give a shit. And the reason why they use that chemical though is because it performs better. It gives better results, more consistent results. And so that's actually, and then also the labor is cheaper. So instead of paying some douchebag here with an associate's degree, $15 an hour, you can pay somebody there that doesn't have an associate's degree, and you don't give a shit because all he's got to do is press a button on the fucking tool and it does everything on its own. So you can pay that guy $1 an hour, $5 an hour if he's a really good tech or something like that. So, but that's why chips in Asia took over, because fab owners like Intel, you can make more money off the same chips. And then what they do is they get the chip and then they test it and they go, okay, it passes these specs. And they do it just like with amplifiers. So if, let's say you make a 500 watt amplifier and you look cool, if you don't call it a 500 watt amplifier, you call it a 200, like if you're Rockford, you call it a 250 watt amplifier. And then it does double the power. Ooh, you're so cool. But you're still charging double the price. So it's like, what are you really paying for? So, but when you have the performance, like, 3 dB of headroom, and then the looks, and again, I'm thinking about the cover, these guys, I love these amps. I love the look. I love the feeling of when I was 20. That's really what I'm remembering. And that this used to be a hot girl. You go to Instagram now, and that's a trashy old housewife. So, but and what you're selling now with this stuff is nostalgia. It's an illusion. It doesn't really exist. As an engineer, or even as an amp designer, meaning I'm not an engineer, I don't know all the physics, but I know a lot of the physics, and I know the cosmetics of what's important and what's not. So, but as an amp designer, you look at these amps now and you're like, these are shitty, these are garbage, like we can do better. And that's why they stopped making these, is because they can do better, and they have done better. Even the cheapy amps that on the Prime series are better than these amps. Prime series are better than Punch and Power series. Yes, you heard it right. So do your math, do your homework, and be reasonable. So you have to look at the results of things. Just like if this is 0 gauge copper, which is what it looks like, and next to it you have 8 gauge CCA, right? Huge difference, right? But if you're only running 20 amps, right? 20 amperes, 20 amps worth of power through each one, does it matter? No, it doesn't, because they're both within their ampacity. So that's all cheap manufacturers do, is they typically they make a 500 watt amp, and then they just don't rate it as low. And in fact, many cases, like in the case of Boss and SSL, they either peak rate it, which is what it does maybe in a fraction of a moment, or they do peak to peak, which is a double of that number. And is it real? Well, that's why Orion actually did a campaign for, I think it was Hot Setup, or ADST, I should say, because Hot Setup was called Hot Setup by Orion, so they were still pimping out the brand using the Hot Setup brand, or Hot Setup series, I should say, because basically it was basically the same board, but it was just like they do a pigtail instead of a terminal, and then later they made it into Best Buy. But I forgot I was wrong with that. But anyways, it's the same devices, it's the same MOSFETs. There's no difference in performance and quality between, say, the Orion HCCA and the Hot Setup amp at 50 watts. They both produce 50 watts really, really well. Oh, that's what I was saying about cheap amplifiers. What they do is they end up using the same FETs, but they just rate it different. That's all. Again, if you use a Boss amp and that's what I told somebody earlier, and they were like super offended when I said, you take a Mosconi amp, right? You probably never even heard of Mosconi. It's an Italian brand, which of course everything's made in China. Don't give me that shit. It might be assembled by Italians, but whatever. So anyways, you take a Mosconi amp, which is like probably whatever, $3,000, $2,000, whatever the fuck it is. It's ridiculous. And then you take a Boss amp, Chinese made basic Boss amp, run them both at 50 watts. Same performance. Now this one might have more power because it's a more powerful amp, but then you go, okay, well, let's get a more powerful Boss amp. Again, if you measure them within their parameters, within their threshold of clean signal, and let's say the Boss amp is rated at 3,000 watts, but it's fused at, let's say, 50 amps. Mosconi amp, fused at 50 amps as well. So they're both equal as far as fuse rating goes. So you go, okay, let's run them at 500 watts. This one, the Boss amp actually does 650 watts. Mosconi amp does actually 1,000 watts. So is the Mosconi amp better? Technically, if they cost the same. But guess what? They don't cost the same. So again, if you're only needing 500 watts, Boss is fine. If you really want to spend an arm and a leg and what would get you, 10 porn star experiences, then yeah, you can buy Mosconi. Good for you. What Mosconi does is they take advantage of your vanity. And that's what BMW does. That's what Mercedes does. That's what Apple does. A lot of people worship status. So and I've talked about this before, especially in Asia, status to them equals quality, better reproductive rights. You're closer to a king, closer to royalty, that sort of thing. If you have, all the things that a rich person would have. And so that's why typically poor people love to have fancy things that they can show that they're living a better life, when really that's kind of a dumb thing, and that's what keeps you in poverty. And corporations know this, and they take advantage of that. So these corporations are basically pimping out your vanity and taking advantage of you because you're insecure and you don't know any better, and you don't have the confidence to be yourself and wear those fucking pro-wing payless shoes that your dad would sit there and feel around for your toe. Where's your toe? Where's your toe? Where's your toe? Oh, my toe's right there. Oh, there's still an inch. He's like, you'll grow into them. Stuff some paper in there. And my dad would buy us $10 Pro Wings with the fucking Velcro. That's what he did. So, and I don't blame him. He had 4 fucking kids that were, we weren't evil, but we certainly weren't good. And we were kind of spoiled. And my dad really did a really good job being a truck driver. And that was 4 of his kids. He actually took on my older brother too, which was the 5th kid. Wasn't his. And so he never got treated. He never got treated the same favorability that we did. So anyways, I love you guys. That is in the books. That is for posterity. Posterity. I need to eat here in a minute. Auto sound and security, though, including Iasca Sound Challenge, the Blastro van, which was a Fosgate demo vehicle, and September 1994. There you go. I love you guys. Talk to you later.